Hi, Armand here with the December 2018 astrology forecast. And let's remember that this is a general forecast. This is the weather report. You'll feel it, you'll get the vibe, but it's not what's happening for you specifically. It's a general forecast. This is also a good time to remind you that when you're done, you can go to armanddiaz.com where you will be able to read the monthly forecast. There's other cool stuff there too, but you'll be able to read the monthly forecast. And, you can go back and reference that and just find a particular day or something. Or you can go to Integral Astrology on Facebook where you can get daily updates. And a great idea for this month particularly would be to stop by relationshipsandastrology.com where we do this sort of blog, but with an emphasis on relationships. And I think with Venus finally gone direct and a big month for Venus, this would be a great time to check out relationshipsandastrology.com and see what's going on in that particular area of life because it is very active. All right, now, hopefully, right? Okay, now on to the December forecast. December divides nicely into 3 chunks, about 10 days each, for a 31-day month, about 10 days each. The beginning of the month, the first 10 days, has some kind of wonky energy that gives you the sort of feeling that it's uneasy. It's a pebble in your shoe. Something's was it the princess and the pea type of situation? Something just doesn't feel quite right. There's a little bit of unease there this month. We come in after a Venus-Uranus opposition on November 30th, which is sort of putting us, is it about me personally? Is it about relationship? That whole dynamic, which has been pretty hot for the last few months. Is again hot at the end of November, beginning of December. Then Mercury retrogrades into Scorpio from Sagittarius, so our thinking gets a little bit more emotionally tinged, perhaps a little bit more reactive down at the tail end, the stinger end of the Scorpion. Meanwhile, Venus comes forward almost simultaneously into Scorpio from Libra, and then you get the claws. So, do you want the claws? Do you want the tail? You're gonna get both the first few days of December with them at the beginning and end of the sign of the Scorpion. So we could be a little bit reactive. We could be a little protective at this time. And Uranus and Mercury make an awkward quincunx. The Sun squares Mars. There's a lot of stuff going on that just feels a little unsettled as the month begins. Then we get to this period from, I would say, the 4th through about the 10th, where it's time to just go inwards. Don't try to deal with a lot of practical stuff at this time. This is a time for inward processing. It's the new moon. We have the new moon on December 7th. It is not going to be dull. It is not going to be a quiet new moon, not at all. With the Sun squaring Neptune a couple of days before and Mars meeting Neptune the same day, this is a very active new moon. It's but it's an internal processing type of time. Now, I know I've been saying since at least September, you got to hold off on things. It's processing. The data's not all in and so on. And you probably don't want to hear it anymore. It's been very easy to be an astrologer over the last few months. You go, not yet. And that's been pretty good advice. This is the time when we are finishing up that processing. Mercury, if you don't trust me for that, Mercury stations to go direct on December 6th, and it's right around the stations that we tend to have the most problems with communication, technology, transportation. So, if nothing else, that ought to convince you that this is not a great time to take care of practical matters. Go inwards. Be busy inwards. This is a great time for meditation. This is a great time for doing all kinds of inner processing, to get some alone time, decide what it is you really want, but not with your head so much as with your heart. The Sun squares Neptune. I gotta say that we can kind of make heroes and demons out of ordinary people, but that's part of the process. It's like math homework. You've got to do. You got to do a little bit of work to get the result. On December 9th, Chiron stations to go direct at the end of Pisces. And this is another thing. This is that kind of like we're going back in, we're feeling the stuff. We're processing emotions. That's the beginning of the month. We're processing emotions so that we can go forward. Okay, now if you've gotten this far, we're good. Because the next section of the month, from the 10th through the 20th, there's a lot of really good energy. It's a very active time. It's a very constructive time. The moon will be waxing, generally speaking, helpful and constructive aspects. And there's a lot of good stuff going on that suggests this is a time when we can begin to really put into place some of those decisions that we've made. Venus crosses out of the shadow of her retrograde on December 17th. So even relationships have a little bit of free air around them at this time. This is a good time to recognize what you've accomplished, how you want to go forward, what you want to do, and then to actually start doing it. So the middle of the month, very active, very positive, very constructive. Of course, there's a couple little bumps in the road here or there. On the 19th, the Sun squares Chiron. There's a few little bumps in the road. There's always a few bumps in the road. Generally speaking, this is a good time for going forward. Now, on December 21st, we have the Capricorn solstice, which means in the northern hemisphere, it is the shortest solar day of the year. The sun spends the least amount of time above the horizon. In the southern hemisphere, it's the other way around. Interestingly though, in the northern hemisphere, it's the shortest solar day of the year, but it's coming up to the full moon on December 22nd, and the full moon in December is always the biggest and brightest full moon. It's highest overhead, so it's sort of the darkest day and the brightest night simultaneously. I'll let you work out the philosophical yin-yang type of implications of that for yourself, but it sounds like it's pretty profound, doesn't it? That's an important full moon because it is at 0 degrees of Cancer, right? It's right at the beginning of the Cancer-Capricorn axis. That's what we call in astrology the world axis. That suggests that what happens at this full moon will be something that is significant on the collective level, as well as, of course, significant for us on personal level, particularly if you have planets at about the early degrees of Cancer, Aries, Capricorn, and Libra. That would be quite profound. It's also interesting that we have the nodes of the moon at the end of the cardinal signs, and we have this full moon at the beginning of it. Seems sort of like another sort of beginning and ending of the signs. At the full moon, we have Mercury, well, a little after the full moon, on December 24th, we have Mercury square to Neptune. Now, Mercury is square to Neptune at the middle of Sagittarius to the middle of Pisces. That new moon on the 7th is in the middle of Sagittarius. That Mars-Neptune meeting is in the middle of Pisces. What that means is the middle of the mutable signs, those are Gemini, Virgo. I know, I'm rolling my eyes, but I know what they are. Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. The middle of those signs are particularly affected in these months. So if your sun is in the middle of those signs, or if any of your planets are in the middle of those mutable signs, you're really feeling the energy this month. You're really going to be resonating with this forecast. You're really going to be resonating with what's happening this month. As for that Mercury-Neptune square on the 24th, that suggests to me that the 23rd, 24th, and 25th, you again not try to take care of any practical things. Do what feels good during these periods of time, these Neptunian periods at the beginning of the month around the 5th to the 7th, and again around the 23rd and 24th. Binge watch TV, go celebrate, have some fun, have a couple of cocktails, not too many, but have a couple of cocktails, whatever you want to do, have some fun. Don't try to take care of practical matters at this time. Now, as we walk out the rest of the month, this sort of high charged energy continues. Mars goes into Aries at the very end of the year, a couple of hours before or after New Year's Eve, midnight. And so we have like a very exciting, I would think, New Year's Eve. The general trend towards the last 10 days of the month is to look and see what's happening. It is a time, again, to sort of take in information. It is probably a little bit of a tough time to be making decisions about it, although I think that maybe right around the 29th or so, we will be at the last quarter moon kind of making a few decisions about what we're seeing going on over the last few days. But in general, the last 10 days of the month are a little bit more of a time to see what's happening. It's that middle section of the month that you have to really take advantage of for action in most ways. One last thing is that Mars meets Chiron at the end of Pisces on December 29th. And one thing about that is that it could really, again, spark up some of those emotional issues and can make things a little bit tense. If you have good memories, or you can check your old emails, look back to January of 2016, probably like right around the middle of January 2016, and what was going on then might be rehashed or revisited in some way or another. That's a little hint for you if you've got a long memory, if you've got things that have been going on since around that time. So, in general, what we have for this month is 10 days at the beginning, which are processing time, coming to a bit of a conclusion. It's not the easiest time, a little wonky. Middle of the month, we start to recognize what it is we want. We start to work towards it. End of the month, we start to take a look and see what's happening, get an idea of how things are playing out, kind of watch more than act. That pretty much sums it up, I think. Relationships, which have been sort of on hold since the beginning of September, definitely get moving again in December. So a lot of those issues that have been worked through or worked around since September are going to be kind of a little bit more in the clear as we go through December. Particularly as we pass through the retrograde point at December 17th, we really get that breath of fresh air. I've noticed a lot of people broke up during this retrograde. I saw a lot of breakups with clients and friends and so on during the retrograde period. There could still be a few more reversals. There could be a few more breakups. There could be a couple of getting back together. There can be a couple of reworking of things in the area of relationship. I think that when we look at the collective, we have to keep in mind that the Sagittarian energy and the Pisces energy, which are so active with each other and interactive this month, could really indicate a time when we're going to see a lot of polarization on the political, social scene. And as if we don't have enough of that. And I think I've said that every month for a few months now, but it continues to be the case. This is going to be a pretty polarized time, especially around the 4th and 5th of December, and especially around the 22nd to the 24th. This is very, very powerful times in the collective. So keep your eye on what's going on there, because after all, we are swimming around in the collective. That's what we've got for December, and I will wish you a Happy New Year and see you in January.